I'll literally just go like this when I'm ready. So everybody good?
Yeah, I'm fine, I think.
Hello, this is the Mad Book Corner. I'm Devin.
Maya.
Mark.
And today we're going to talk about books and why we like them, why we read them, what we've read, what we plan to read. So, you want to just we all do one book at a time out of our top 5 for the year? Okay.
Yeah.
So, one book I read this year that I really enjoyed was The Old Slave Man by Patrick Chemozu. He's a French author, and the story is about an old slave, as in what's in the title. And basically, it's about his escape from a dog and his master in the Caribbean. And it's a really ephemeral novel, and it's basically a psychedelic experience, I guess you would say. It's not just a traditional slave narrative or escape narrative. It's really interesting. He talks about like the trees breathing and life being exerted from all the nature around him, and him getting lost in the darkness and things like that. It's really interesting. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read. It's more like poetry than prose, but that's definitely a 5 out of 5 for me for this year.
I don't even remember what I put in my top 5.
We have it on the side here.
Okay, just read this like a week ago, just finished it. It took me about a week to read. I read a book a week. My goal is 54 books this year, even though there's 52 weeks in the year, but so there'll be like a couple times where I read 2 books. So I just read this book last week. I just finished it, The Spiritual Brain. So basically, it's a psychology book, and it has spiritual
Undertones?
Yeah, because it's all about, like, based off our brain or whatever, like, does our spirituality come from, like...
Our psyche?
Yeah.
I'm glad this. I read the book.
So, yeah, so that's just basically what it is. Very interesting. I don't know.
If you were to rate it on 1 to 5, what would you give it?
I rated it a 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
It's one of my favorite books, like, favorite ever. No, like, it was just...
It just aligned with your...
No, yes,
mind?
because it...
It made sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Alright.
A spiritual connection, so to speak. So I'd say The Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy is probably one of my absolute favorites that I've read from like last year till now. Just because like the book is very good at dark humor. Like so the story starts off with our main character, and his house is going to be bulldozed over because apparently the town's like moral process or whatever, they've all agreed like, yeah, we have to get rid of this area to make a parking lot. It's like,
so
well,
like up.
Yeah. He complains about it, and they're like, well, you see, we had a notification on the town bulletin board, but the bulletin board is in the basement of like a library that no one's allowed entry into, and it is there, but it's smaller than every other flyer on there.
So it's catch-22.
Yeah, it's just nonsense. And then after, Earth is going to be destroyed in like the next 20 minutes by these aliens who are going to destroy it to make a highway. You know, people want to complain. We're like, well, we have a flyer inside the Galaxy like town hall, but again, it's in a basement where no one can see. It's the same joke again.
Mm-hmm.
The book just kind of pokes fun at a lot of like things, I guess, that you could say that are in society in a way. Like, let's see. Oh, one of my like favorite jokes was near the end. Also, the main character, like, he ends up in space and stuff. I probably should have said that. Yeah. Oh, everyone else dies, though.
Nice.
Earth is actually just
Mark just
obliterated.
low keys. He's like, okay, that's mentioned.
They end up cornered by, like, these space police officers. The officers, like, have their weapons drawn. And they're like, oh, please, like, just Kana is like, hey, you know, don't try to lump us in with those officers who are violent and shoot passerby and then go to some bar and brag about it. No, after killing you guys, I'm gonna have to go home and complain to my wife about the mental trauma this caused me and to the rest of my force and how I'm a victim because of this. There's a little robot who's like clinically depressed and caused the ship to kill itself, which is also just...
What?
This book is like dark, but it's like it's dark humor. Just the way it's put together. It's very silly with like it takes like the most serious things and it just kind of
belittles them.
Yeah, it just turns them into like jokes that all around just made me laugh a lot. I guess that might have something bad to say about me because of how much I enjoyed the dark humor. But I just love the way that it was written and just the humorous way it portrays everything. Like it says philosophers, the one thing a philosopher hates is the answer to any question because that's their whole business is just trying to come up with questions. They don't want the answers. If they have an answer, then what's the point of being a philosopher?
Yeah.
And that's a 5 for you?
Yeah, I give that a 5.
A 5 out of 5?
So,
okay.
Sorry, I talked a bit too much.
Okay.
Hey, if you like the book, that's why we're here. That's the book corner. What's my next book? Oh, yeah. So, other book I read was Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. And it's semi-autobiographical, and it has to do with his relationship to the church when he was younger. But instead of being the main character being James, it's John, which really clever twist right there. And so basically the book's just about, it's supposed to be structured as like a coming of age story, except that only the first third of the book is about him, and it's just his day outside during his birthday. And then the rest of it's about his father as a priest and the horrible things he did, and then his mother having to deal with that. And it's written very well. It's just really sad because his dad, like, he has an affair with his he has an affair when he has his first marriage, and then he gets a young girl pregnant in town. She's like 17 or 18, and then when she comes up to him and says she's pregnant, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, I'm holier than thou, all this, all that. I'm God's disciple. I can't. That's sin. I would never do such a thing. Blah blah blah, and denies it. And then she like leaves. But then she sends him a letter, and it's like, you know who I am. She doesn't even really say who she is. She's like, you know who I am. You know you did. I still have your child, and if you come anywhere near me or try to blackmail me, I'm gonna blackmail you with all the things that you did to me and all this stuff. So it's not like a front violence, but it's just the drama, like a family drama. But it's really well written, and the time it was written in the 40s or 50s, and there's depictions, well not depictions, but descriptions of his sexual awakening, which was very taboo for the time. Like there's one child in the church that's older than him named Elijah, and then he mentions wanting to be like Elijah, and he thinks Elijah's beautiful. So that's different for the time. But James Baldwin was gay, so it kind of again mirrors his upbringing. But it's written very, very well. It's one of the best. Again, it's the way it's written is one of the most interesting things about it. It's written very archaic, I'd say. It's more like an old-timey book than a current book. And the end portion, the last probably 50 or so pages, it's funny because it's about him. You know, in church where the sinner will come up and they bring the sinner up and everybody's like,
oh yeah.
We'll bring the devil out of you, and they start screaming at him, and it's like God will like purge you.
And they're like crying and hysterically crying, everyone's crying.
Yeah, that happens to him, and he's on the ground. It's called the thrashing floor, and he's just on, and the way he describes it just sounds insane. It sounds like something you could never think. Like he sees God and he sees his father and he sees like the stairs to heaven, and he talks about like the whole world like shaking around him, and he can't hear, and it's just buzzing sounds and this light, and it's like insane. And it's very interesting because it's hilarious because all it is in real life is him on the ground squirming around and everybody's screaming at him, but it sounds like some divine intervention and like a battle. It at least feels like a battle between good and evil, which is really interesting. But that book's also a 5 for me. Not Giovanni's Room. Go Tell It on a Mountain. If I said Giovanni's Room before, mistaken. Go Tell It on a Mountain. But
I'm actually reading Giovanni's Room right now.
Yeah, that's another one by James Baldwin.
My top 5 is...
Wasn't it, I know what it was. It was, the pyramid one on the cover.
Yeah.
Say the title.
Unless
Mark has a phone, he doesn't remember the title.
I read so much books I don't
remember.
Okay, this looks bad. Okay.
Pyramids of Light.
Yes. Okay.
Pyramids of Light by who?
Pyramids of Light by. Okay, it just Pyramids of Light. Okay.
Can't see the author's name.
Let's
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Wow.
It's a metaphysics book. If you know anything about metaphysics, it's just like different. It's like doing different meditations where you can get into a different reality of what you are now, and yeah, it just talks about different realities that we could have in like this world that other people can't come into, and how we can achieve that, and how it'll bring us to different lights in the world, and how it could bring you far. And I don't know, I read it like a couple months ago. It was really good. It's good. It's really informative, and like how like you like the person reading could do it. I never personally tried to do anything in the book. It's just interesting just reading about it, because I don't know. I don't think I truly like believe in that metaphysics. It's just like really interesting, but it's not all about that. It's about like being open for different realities and how like that could bring you to far things in life, like I said. But yeah, it's really interesting, really spiritual. Not everyone wants to read that, but I love it. And yeah.
What's up next for Mark?
let's see. Oh, so like this one is actually well, 2 of my top 5 books are mangas because I'm like weeb trash. This one is one called I Am a Hero. That like
Wait, who's it by? I'm a Hero by
Kengo Hanazawa. I don't remember how I came across this, but this is probably like one of my favorite series just because. So, you know, like the typical zombie apocalypse genre, right? You know, we always have a main character who's athletic to no end, is unbelievably clever, is charismatic. Inside this, our main character is not very athletic. He's not a genius. He's not the best with people. And to top it all off, he's schizophrenic. The like story kind of like takes you through as the infection breaks out and just him trying his best to surviving not only against these horrific monstrosities of human flesh that are going about, but also surviving his own delusions, the nightmares that like he's had with him for so long inside his life, and having to deal with what's real and what's not real. The art style is like bordering on realistic, and there's just these really eerie, grotesque visuals. Like when I read something, you know, it's pretty hard for it to give me a spook, you know? Like if I'm playing a game or watching a movie, it's like easier for it to scare me because it's something that'll just shock me because I don't have control over it. When I'm reading something, I'm turning the page. I'm putting my eyes to whatever. Mm-hmm. The book actually like kind of fills me with a bit of dread just because of how the visuals look. It's so like, what's the word I want to use? Like grotesque, macabre. The art style is just, it really pulls everything together, and just the narrative of this guy wanting to survive and help people the best that he can. And also the reason it's called I Am a Hero is that was the mantra he used to tell himself, because he would spend the entire night awake, afraid that things would come into like his small studio apartment. He would lock all the doors and just do his best to check all the windows. And he would always tell himself, I am a hero, because a hero can deal with any situation that comes. Now he has to really try to be a hero, dealing with his own delusions and everything else. The series also has a couple of spin-offs. I read one of them, which was some guy with like PPD, which is like a mental disorder. You just cannot trust people. You're constantly paranoid or suspicious of them when there's no reason to be. I think it's interesting how the author portrayed that through the art. Like he'll have a character say one thing, but then how he perceives it, like half their face will be just this horrific, like, redrawing of them saying what he believes they actually mean.
Oh, I see.
Like one person saying that I'll protect you, and really what he feels is you're just fodder. Like, I just feel it's really interesting the way that he went about this series. It's also another one of his spin-offs of the same series is on my 2 reads, which is instead about a kid and his dog who are stuck in the outbreak. But his family was infected and his neighborhood friends, and he's just trying to survive inside his small town.
Okay.
All right. Descriptive.
I think we should do just top 3. So we're not doing it too long. So this will be my last one.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No. It's good. It's good. We're talking about books. So either I could talk about. I'll just talk about. So I guess the next book I'll talk about, the final one, because we're just going to do top 3 instead of top 5, will be Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. So I just want to do a quote from it. I have a quote over here. It's the last one I did. That one.
Here.
So a quote from the book is, "We rip so much out of ourselves to be cured of things faster that we go bankrupt by the age of 30 and have less to offer each time we start with someone new. But to feel nothing so as not to feel anything, what a waste." So that comes at the end of the book, where the main character has a discussion with his father about what has occurred during the book. So the book's about a young man, he's Italian American, and he lives during the summer months and like winter holidays with his family in a villa in Italy. But they speak like English, it's not in Italian. So he's spending time there, and his father is an archaeology professor. Well, he's a classic professor, so he talks about like Roman culture, Greek culture, things like that. So his father is a professor, and every summer he brings one of his students getting a master's degree to come and do research with him. And this summer he brings a gentleman named Oliver. He was 24, and then his son is 17. And the book just talks about them falling in love, basically. And it's a book the way it describes desire is very enthralling, because it's every time the main character Elio thinks about Oliver, it's extremely descriptive, and it's every single way you can ever bring someone up. So if he's walking, he's thinking about Oliver walking. If he's eating, he's thinking about what Oliver would be eating. If he's sleeping, he's thinking about where Oliver is sleeping. So it just talks about that, and it's also about the sexual awakening of a young man. And at the end of the book, Oliver leaves, and Elio's parents find out about what they were doing, their affair. And instead of the traditional narrative about like someone's homosexuality, instead of the parents being like, "You're a disgrace, we despise you, we're going to disown you," his father sits him down and says, "I know what happened. You should appreciate what you had." And then he says that quote that to feel nothing so as not to feel anything, what a waste. Because he's basically saying the pain makes you grow, and to ignore the pain or disregard the pain, turn the pain into something negative, is only going to be bad for you in the end. And I feel like it's an important book to mention, because I read Fahrenheit 451, I read James Baldwin's biography, and I thought those were excellent books. But the reason I bring this book up is because a lot of kids our age aren't comfortable talking about their sexuality, or there's not a lot of books that paint in a positive light. It's a bunch of caricatures, but these are all...
You forgot something.
What?
About, well, like him, like, thinking that he's gay or whatever, but then he was, like, at the same time...
Oh, yeah. So in the book, he has this relationship with Oliver, but he also has a relationship with a young woman that's his age. So he's, like, between two... He's, like, bi-curious, so he's between these two people. So, like I was saying, it's interesting how it... Because it just makes it be respectable that they're humans. They're not a caricature. It's not that sassy gay friend or whatever the other stereotypes are. It's intelligent people in a foreign country exploring who they are and discovering who they are. And it's just really interesting. And I feel like people should read it or give it a chance if they feel like... either if they feel like they are turning to one end of the spectrum, or just to understand other people, because it's really just human sexuality. Everybody is somewhere. It is a spectrum. It's not a lever.
Yeah. Okay.
But
would you rate it?
I rated it a 4. I didn't do a 5 because the book gets a little... For me, it's a little...
Yeah. Okay.
But,
Is it a book? Sorry.
Oh, wow. Wow. Breaking the mold of professionalism.
It's okay. Alright. Because...
Actually, yeah. There you
Okay. All right.
Go. All right.
My last one.
My last one.
Out of 15 books, I picked New Jim Crow.
Why you doing this with your hands?
By Michelle Alexander. I'm going to read the excerpt of what it's about.
Excerpt.
It's
Oh, you make it 10.
Yeah.
because it's huge, alright? Okay.
Huge.
Okay. Oh no.
Can you even read it now?
Oh my gosh.
It's so unprofessional.
You're a professional.
Wow.
Not all of it's on here.
You want me to just
Oh
read
my
it?
God.
I'll just read it.
Okay.
Jarvis Cotton's great-great-grandfather could not vote as a slave. His great-grandmother was beaten to death by the Ku Klux Klan for attempting to vote. His grandfather was prevented from voting by Klan intimidation. His father was barred from poll taxes and literary tests. Today, Cotton cannot vote because he, like many black men in the United States, has been labeled a felon and is currently on parole. As the United States celebrates the nation's triumph over race with the election of Barack Obama, the majority of young black men in major American cities are locked behind bars or have been labeled felons for life. Although Jim Crow's laws have been wiped off the books, an outstanding percentage of African American communities remain trapped in subordinate status, much like their grandparents before them. In this incisive critique, former litigator turned legal scholar Michelle Alexander provocatively argues that we have not ended racial caste in America. We have simply redesigned it. Alexander shows that by targeting black men and decimating communities of color, the U.S. criminal system functions as a contemporary system of racial control, even as it is formally adheres to the principle of colorblindness. The new Jim Crow challenges the civil rights community and all of us to place mass incarcerations at the forefront of a new movement for racial justice in America.
Okay. So basically, it's about how what's his name?
Barack Obama?
No,
Oh.
white president.
Oh.
White president. Okay, so we got George,
No, what's his
we
name?
got
No.
Abraham, Ronald Reagan.
No,
Bill
he's like
Clinton.
racist. Yes, Bill Clinton.
He's like racist.
How he made the new Jim Crow. So basically, it's about like the Jim Crow in general is when people were separated, like back in the day.
Yeah, segregation.
Segregation. So basically, it's the new version of it in this generation.
Which is mass incarceration.
Yes. So basically, it's like, okay, so when he was president, I don't remember everything because I read this like a long time ago, like in January.
Should have reread it for the book talk.
So basically, it's about how he plays laws that made it impossible for people of color, especially black people, to do stuff in the real world. So basically, if, say for instance, Devin gets arrested for something,
Mm-hmm.
for trying, I don't know, it's not even just like a good
Shoplifting
thing.
a candy bar.
Yes. You're gonna go to jail for however long, right? But when you get out, you can't get housing because you're a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go get help for housing. You can't get food stamps. So
Can't vote.
okay, before I get into that, it's not obvious, but a lot of people know that how like African American community, a lot of them don't have the resources to have a nice life. So based off that knowledge, he still would make it impossible for people who not even just were in prison, they couldn't do the things to just have a normal life. They didn't have the resources to do things that would let them get better in life. So even if I went to jail 20 years ago, I was still not, they would make it impossible for them to actually do anything productive in their life or make enough money to do anything to support their family or whatever. So it's just like...
And the book talks about how that's a perpetuation of the 13th Amendment.
Yes, it's great. Everyone should read it. Everyone go buy it.
So 6
Everyone
out of 5.
go read it. 20 out of 10. Like, all right.
Very muy importante for
Yes.
this
I
year.
wish I had the book. I have all my physical copies of my books. I buy all my books. Okay, all right. But
Okay, me and Mark have to read the book.
I
So.
like highlighted everything. Oh my god, it's such a good book. I wish I had it with me. I would like show like all the quotes that I
But you
highlighted
didn't.
and stuff. It's really good. It's really
Unprofessional.
good. I like reading books like that. Like, but I like my spiritual books too. But yeah, go ahead.
Wait, before we go to Mark, what do you like more? Do you like the books that talk about racial strife, like that, or like Ta-Nehisi Coates, or spirituality? There's just a question. It's not like
I like spirituality better only because books like that make me so mad. Like I have to stop reading
like
it.
New Jim Crow, you were just
Yeah,
like...
no, I just get so angry. I can't control it. It's like, why are you doing this to my people? So yeah, go ahead.
So Mark's got... Oh, okay.
I read that too.
That's the medically
I
appropriate.
read that. Oh my god, I read it last year though. Go ahead.
Well, I read it like a little while before you did last year.
Ooh.
Like I noticed that you had the book like a month after.
And then he went like
already
this. He was like,
finished it.
I already did that.
Yeah, so the book we're talking about is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. All right, I was gonna say Angela for some reason. All right, so I know a movie came out about it, but I kind of refused to watch it because I feel like they wouldn't have
something.
I felt like they wouldn't have done the book justice. You know, I felt like they wouldn't have done it as well as the book did. You know,
Yeah.
because every movie I see of a book disappoints me, and I know it's gonna disappoint me. But then I watch it, and it hurts worse than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Especially if like there's such a small thing, but you have a vision for a character that you've been reading for 300 pages, and then you look at it and like, who's that?
Yeah.
It doesn't add up.
The movie's really good though. You should watch it.
No, don't tell him that he's not watching it.
No, you really
It goes against his
should.
code.
The book is better, but the
I'm the one that hasn't
movie
read it,
is
so it's
good.
awkward.
And I don't really like movies, but yeah, go ahead.
She hates movies. That's so funny. But why do you like it, Mark? Let's go. Why?
All right, well, I guess I should give a brief synopsis. I'll try to be brief this time. All right, so we have a young black girl named Star, right? And she lives inside, like, you know, the ghetto of Garden Heights, right? So she bounces with that life and the way that the kind of society and everyone interacts there. But then also she goes to, like, primarily white prep school named, what was it called? Williamson Prep. Sorry, I read this last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing is, the way that she acts there is a bit different because of the people that she talks to and just the way that the society is. So she's just kind of like on this like tight-roping act, I guess, of like two worlds of, you know, where does she really belong? And to herself, she, like you could tell she doesn't really feel like she belongs to either or. And she just kind of is okay with living in this peaceful way, sort of. But then this is all kind of shattered for her when her like childhood friend Khalil is murdered by an officer right in front of her. And after this, she has to take action in a way, I suppose you could say. Like with the whole media circus that comes in afterwards. The book is just like all about from point A, like I feel like it's a book about her just kind of finding herself and speaking out for not only for herself but for everyone else who's affected by these struggles. Like this book, I suppose, left a really lasting impression on me because it felt so real. Like it felt like this was an actual person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've lived inside a ghetto for quite a bit of my life, and like the way that the characters interact, it's natural. This is, it felt completely normal. None of the characters felt like they were trying really hard to like be relatable. The characters just were relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And also I kind of found myself identifying with her in a way, just because, see, I'm Puerto Rican, entirely so, but in my family I've always been kind of seen as a bit of an oddity because my skin is a lot lighter than most of my family and I can't speak Spanish. I'm just kind of the odd one out.
I feel that.
But with her also being like in between these two worlds, I kind of could identify with that. I understand what it's like to not really feel like there's a place you belong because both of these worlds, I suppose, are like where you are. Like I may not speak Spanish, I may not listen to Hispanic music, but I do time.
Spanish music, come on now. Dang.
I tie myself like deeply with Hispanic culture. Like outside one of my favorite video games, Resident Evil, there's this one character.
Lewis.
No, I did love Lewis though. But there was one character in one of the games who was Puerto Rican. That's the only time ever I've seen a Puerto Rican character mentioned in anything. If you're Hispanic, you're either from Spain or you're Mexican. That's it. Also, I kind of feel bad if like you're Mexican because apparently Mexico is either a desert or it's Dia de los Muertos. That's it. There's no in between. They have nothing else. But yeah, like this book I think was great. It was both humorous and insightful. I also like how they portrayed like the issues of society just as the issues. Like they didn't like try to overblow it in any way, but they didn't undersell it either. They just put it exactly as it was. They didn't like go about trying to demonize the police force, but they show that there is an issue here. Yeah, like I felt like the book felt real. That's my best description of it. And I give that a 5.
Read it and watch it.
Read
Watch it. I cried.
Read it.
I didn't cry reading the book, but like seeing it
Has a book
visually
Wait,
made me cry.
has a book ever made anybody here cry?
Yeah.
What book was it? Because now I'm curious.
It was like this. It was like a war journal type thing.
Oh.
Yeah, it was during the Vietnam War. I think it was Vietnam War, right? Yeah, it was. It was just the main character. He ends up befriending this one other soldier, and the two of them become close. At first, they were kind of at odds because, again, this was like Vietnam, era where like there was a lot of like the racial issues were like more in your face than I guess you could say now. There still is the issue, but it was like more blatant. And the main character was white, but this other soldier was black, and he was immediately kind of distrusting of him. But the two of them, they became unbelievably close, like brothers. And it really upset me because his friend dies, and he just goes in, like he says that he listens to his favorite tape like every day, and he cries about it still. That hurt. Oof. I threw the book. I was upset.
Mark!
That hit a nerve.
Yeah.
Now I feel bad.
It hit a nerve.
No, the only book made me cry. Men We Reap made me cry. Remember that book I read? It's by Jesmyn Ward. So Men We Reaped is about 5 men in her life that all died. And so one of them died in a car crash. One was killed by police. One was lost to drugs. I think another was lost to drugs. And I think another one was police. I think 2 of them were police. But one was her brother. So I forgot which one of them made me cry. But one I was reading I think it was the first one that got shot by the police because they had a party and they were all drinking and smoking or whatever. And then they got a phone call that said so-and-so got shot. And he was shot in his own yard in front of his girlfriend and his child. And he had just a tank top on. He was just lying in the grass. And then that one hit me bad. And also there's a description of her getting attacked by a dog when she was younger that made me really emotional because she was like 7 and it was her dad's fighting dog and it went on her and she said she had like a scar right here. It almost like took out her jugular because it was trained to do that. So it almost killed her when she was younger. And then the dad had to shoot the dog. And when she was a child, she was like, she wrote something along the lines of, I wasn't angry at it for attacking me, but I pitied it for getting murdered for attacking me because her dad take it out in the back and he shot him. But that book made me cry. There's a couple places in the book I get choked up because it's really sad. I don't think the book is it's one of those books where you would want to have a happy ending. It doesn't really have a resolution at all. It's just like,
yeah,
here's all this sadness I've gone through and there's nothing I can do about it. Did the book make you cry? You said no.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Did it make you sad? Did you?
Make me mad.
Did you close it? Did you close the book and go now I'm sad? You never close the book and I'm sad
no,
now?
because usually I read informative books. I don't read
story. Me and Mark read narrative books.
I like more informative books. Just give me the facts. I just want to know the facts. Just give me that and then I'll be alright.
Don't give me a story, give me the facts.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really like storybooks, but yeah.
What else can we talk about?
Books made us mad.
What books made you mad? Because the Mad Book Corner? No,
Oh yeah.
How we put... You guys want to talk about 2 of the books that you want to read, or you want to talk about why we even read books? Why
I read books because when I was younger, this is gonna sound like a pity party, but I really don't want a pity party. I just didn't have much friends, and I grew up here, and we were already kind of older. We were 9 or 10, and everyone already had friends and had their groups or whatever, and I just didn't have that, and I just always read. I get it. My mom always bought me books. I think it was just her enforcing it, but she wouldn't really enforce it. She would just buy me oh, you should read this book. So I would read that book, and then I'd love it so much, and then that's what I kept doing, and then...
Diary Kid.
Yeah.
Matilda.
Yeah. I read a lot of... Just how I grew up, basically, but yeah.
So why do you like books, Mark?
It's kind of weird. You see, back when I was I'm pretty sure I was 5 at the time, I found Game Boy Advance underneath this one dresser that belonged to a cousin who didn't live at my grandmother's or ever did, but for whatever reason it was there. And this is really roundabout, but it had a copy of Pokemon Gold in it, and that game is very text heavy. Now as a kid, I always had this thing with monsters, and so it was oh, this is so cool, but I wanted to know what was being said, what was the narrative here. And so when I would go to school, I decided to like pour all of my focus into learning how to read, and I did. After that, I found that I just really enjoyed the process of reading. Not only did I enjoy playing the game, but I would go out of my way to practice reading other books because I just enjoyed being able to understand more of what I read or being given a story. That's also when I realized that one of my favorite things is storytelling by far. So, monsters and storytelling.